Great Luo Heaven. Usually bustling with noise, Great Luo Heaven today seemed unusually calm. However, everyone knew that countless gazes were now focused on the direction of the 9 Nether Palace. Everyone was waiting for the 9 Nether Palace's next move. As the time passed, many people's brows furrowed in slight concern. Could it be that 9 Nether Palace was truly planning to take the lowest route and avoid battle? But what good would hiding do now? The Blood Eagle King was bent on dragging the 9 Nether Palace's reputation through the mud. If they chose to avoid the confrontation, it would be far worse than being defeated by the Blood Eagle guards. Could the 9 Nether King really be this foolish? Boom. Just as countless powerful figures in Great Luo Heaven began to doubt, suddenly, from the direction of the 9 Nether Palace, a massive battle intent shot into the sky, catching everyone's attention in an instant. Above the 9 Nether Palace, dark clouds began to rise, hanging in the air. These clouds formed the 9 Nether Guards. And at the forefront of the 9 Nether Guards stood a tall figure, straight as a spear piercing the heavens, exuding a sharp, cutting aura. Blood Eagle Guards, my 9 Nether Guards await your arrival in the military combat arena. The young man's clear, cheerful laugh, wrapped in powerful spiritual energy, echoed across every corner of Great Luo Heaven. Whoosh! As Mu Chen's voice rang out, the 9 Nether Guards transformed into a cloud of black, sweeping through the sky, heading straight for the military combat arena in Great Luo Heaven. Whoosh! At that moment, the entire Great Luo Heaven was in an uproar. 9 Nether Palace had finally made a move, and judging by their actions, it seemed they were about to face the Bloodhawk Hall's assault head-on. This was about to get exciting. Whoosh! Whoosh! The sound of wind being split echoed as numerous figures shot up from all directions of Great Luo Heaven, flooding toward the military combat arena. Crack! Inside Bloodhawk Hall, the Blood Eagle King, who had been wearing a satisfied grin, suddenly crushed the iron ball in his hand upon hearing Mu Chen's laugh. A fierce glint flashed in his scarlet eyes, and a cruel smile appeared on his lips. Wu Tian. Here. Wu Tian immediately responded. Lead the Blood Eagle Guards. I don't want to see this brat in Great Luo Heaven again after today, the Blood Eagle King said, his eyes slightly lowered, his tone indifferent. Understood. Wu Tian's eyes gleamed with murderous intent. He grinned and moved swiftly, leaving the hall. He waved his hand, and from within Bloodhawk Hall, a sea of bloodlight surged into the sky. Instantly, a killing aura enveloped the area. The military combat arena, located in the northwest of Great Luo Heaven, was different from the usual training grounds. This was the most vast space in Great Luo Heaven, as it wasn't just for individuals to fight, but for entire armies. Many of Great Luo Heaven's armies had used this arena to test their skills against each other, and as a result, this area was designed like a battlefield, filled with a murderous aura. Today, the military combat arena was particularly lively, and the source of the commotion was, of course, the clash between the 9 Nether Guards and the Blood Eagle Guards. Whoosh! The sound of breaking air filled the sky as a mass of black clouds descended, like a series of iron spears piercing the earth, causing the ground to tremble. Yet, the figures within remained unmoving. Mu Chen's figure also lightly landed at the forefront of the 9 Nether Guards. Seeing the battle-ready expressions on their faces, he nodded slightly in approval. Although the 9 Nether Guards might be outnumbered, their momentum was undiminished. This army had potential. If they all advanced to the Supreme stage, even 5th-grade Supremes could be easily slain. Whoosh! Whoosh! As the 9 Nether Guards landed on the battlefield, light and shadows began to streak across the sky from afar, eventually hovering in the air, gazing down on the scene. It seemed the duel had already drawn the attention of all of Great Luo Heaven's residents. Among those present, several other kings from the Great Luo Heaven domain had appeared, demonstrating just how much noise this wagered battle had made. Tang Bing, Tang Rou, and the others quickly arrived as well. They stood in midair, followed by many of the 9 Nether Palace's people. The sky was filled with gazes all focused on them, when suddenly their expressions changed. They turned to look in another direction. There, the sky was painted in a blood-red hue. Whoosh! That blood-red color spread at an astonishing speed, eventually pouring down like a torrential rain of blood, overwhelming the battlefield. The earth trembled with a series of loud thuds, and the blood-red color seemed to saturate the entire area. Everyone's eyelids twitched. The Blood Eagle Guard had finally arrived. In the sky, the figure of the Blood Eagle King also appeared. He stood in midair, casting a dark glance at the 9 Nether Guard. A cold smile flashed in his eyes as he turned to smile at 9 Nether and said, 9 Nether, if you lose this wager battle, my Bloodhawk Hall will gain another king-level subordinate force. 9 Nether's beautiful eyes were cold as she glanced at him and replied indifferently, then you better have the life to enjoy it. You should prepare the 100 cities and the Supreme Heaven Pills first. If you have the capability, my Bloodhawk Hall will gladly offer them. The Blood Eagle King chuckled, then waved his hand. Enough talk. Let's get started. As his voice fell, the blood mist that had been spreading rapidly suddenly thickened. A fierce wind began to blow, and the blood light slowly faded. Figures clad in blood armor, exuding a strong stench of blood, began to appear one after another, under the watchful eyes of everyone. The Blood Eagle Guards that appeared were all wearing blood armor, with blood-red patterns resembling the image of a tearing beast. A murderous aura radiated from them. At the front of the Blood Eagle Guards stood Wu Tian, also wearing blood armor and holding a blood spear. A chilling smile appeared on his face as he looked at Mu Chun and the 9 Nether Guard. His gaze as cold as one eyeing a prey about to be captured. Mu Chun, since we are both from the great Luo Heaven domain, if you admit defeat now, I might show mercy and spare the 9 Nether Guard. Otherwise, you will suffer heavy losses and disrupt the upcoming conquest war for our great Luo Heaven domain. What do you say? Wu Tian smiled at Mu Chun. Mu Chun chuckled upon hearing this. What I wanted to say, you've already said. Stubborn as ever, Wu Tian replied with a faint smile. Seems like you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. In that case, don't blame my Bloodhawk Hall for showing no mercy. Mu Chun glanced at the number of Blood Eagle Guards. Just as he was about to speak, his expression suddenly stiffened when he noticed the strange smile on Wu Tian's face. Something's wrong. 9 Nether seemed to sense something at the same time. Her delicate face changed as she looked out over the battlefield. It was then that she realized the blood cloud behind the Blood Eagle Guards had not dissipated yet. Boom. The ground trembled slightly as the sound of orderly footsteps rang out. Everyone's expression changed as they looked at the thick blood cloud, only to see that more figures were appearing from within. These figures slowly stepped out from the blood cloud and appeared behind the Blood Eagle Guards. To their shock, a large number of additional Blood Eagle Guards had appeared. The number had doubled. Whoosh! An uproar swept through the air. Even Su Qing and Zhou Yu's expressions changed at the sight. The Bloodhawk Hall had dispatched all of their Blood Eagle Guards. But with this many Blood Eagle Guards, could Wu Tian really control them with his current strength? Was he not worried about being backlashed by the battle will? Whispers filled the air, and it was clear that no one had anticipated this move from the Bloodhawk Hall. It seems your Bloodhawk Hall has really bet everything this time, Mu Chun said with a slight frown as he looked at the scene. It's too late for regrets now. Wu Tian smiled smugly at Mu Chun, his eyes full of mockery. With your strength, aren't you afraid of the battle will backlash? Mu Chun asked. Wu Tian smiled. Then the light flashed between his two fingers, and a pill glowing with spiritual light appeared in his hand. He popped it into his mouth, and the smile on his face grew even more sinister. Now it's time. That's the ethereal pill. Despicable. Tang Bing and the others gasped, their faces paling as they recognized the pill. It seemed she knew what the ethereal pill could do. 9 Nether's face grew even colder. The Bloodhawk Hall was truly resorting to any means to win. 9 Nether. There's no rule in our agreement against this. 9 Nether coldly glanced at the Blood Eagle King, her jade-like hand tightening into a fist. The others present in the heavens and earth frowned upon seeing this, clearly unimpressed by the Bloodhawk Hall's tactics. After all, the strength of Bloodhawk Hall far surpassed 9 Nether Palace, yet they still resorted to such methods to secure a victory. Although they were unimpressed, they couldn't say anything. After all, there was no rule against such actions in the duel of wagers between the Blood Eagle King and the others. Right now, 9 Nether Palace's situation was becoming increasingly precarious. 9 Nether ignored the sympathetic gazes and simply turned her beautiful eyes toward Mu Chun. As if sensing her gaze, he turned his head and smiled at her with a slight nod. Seeing Mu Chen's response, Nine Nether gently nodded her head, her tense heart secretly relaxing a little. Fortunately, they weren't completely unprepared. Take action. I hope your methods have some effect, Mu Chen said as he extended his palm toward Wu Tian, gently curling his fingers, and smiled. Still stubborn at a time like this, Wu Tian sighed, then grinned fiercely. But believe me, you won't be able to keep that up for long. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped down with the blood spear in his hand. Boom. Behind him, all the Blood Eagle guards stomped their blood spears into the ground. Immediately, the earth trembled, and a blood-red battle intent, like a sea of blood, spread across the heavens and earth. Many people's expressions grew grave. The overwhelming blood-red battle intent surged forth, causing the once bright world to gradually darken. The air became oppressive, and there was a faint smell of blood that began to spread. All gazes turned to the Blood Eagle guards, who were emanating terrifying battle intent. At that moment, they resembled bloodthirsty beasts emerging from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, ready to tear apart any enemies that dared to appear before them. Among the many armies in the Great Luo Heavenly Domain, the Blood Eagle guards might not be the strongest, but their murderous intent was second to none. This kind of killing intent had been forged through countless rivers of blood. In the past, numerous sects and forces had been shattered under the blood spears of the Blood Eagle guards. Now, the blood-speckled blood spears of the Blood Eagle guards were once again raised, but this time, their tips were pointed at the 9 Nether guards. What remained to be seen was whether the 9 Nether guards could survive such a powerful adversary. Countless eyes turned to the 9 Nether guards, who stood resolute in black armor. Not a hint of fear could be seen in their eyes, only a surging battle intent. Under the watchful gazes of everyone, Mu Chen and Wu Tian's eyes met, both filled with cold, murderous intent. Overwhelming spiritual energy slowly poured out from both of them, and their bodies began to rise. Eventually, they sat in midair, looking down at each other from a great distance. Blood Eagle battle intent. Wu Tian showed no intention of being polite. With a cold sneer, he raised his hand and shouted harshly, his voice echoing through the sky. Boom. The already overwhelming blood-red battle intent surged once again. It was as if a sea of blood hovered above the Blood Eagle guards, rising and falling, emanating a bloodthirsty aura. I'm curious to see just how far a newly appointed leader, who's been in power for only 2 or 3 months, can push his battle intent. Wu Tian sneered, then pointed his finger into the air. Blood Shadow battle intent. Blood Spear Demon Array. Buzz. As Wu Tian's shout rang out, countless streams of blood light rose from the sea of battle intent, eventually forming an overwhelming sky of blood-red spears above him. These giant spears, formed from pure battle intent, were razor-sharp and unstoppable. Such an attack would make even a third-grade supreme expert hesitate, for after all, this wasn't just Wu Tian alone, but the combined power of 5,000 Blood Eagle guards fueling it. However, despite the name Bloodspear Demon Array, it was clearly just a flashy title. If Wu Tian truly had the ability to transform battle intent into an array, Mu Chen might as well concede immediately. Whoosh! Whoosh! Countless blood spears materialized. Wu Tian's sleeve flicked, and the sound of piercing air rang out sharply. The blood spears shot out like a torrential downpour, directly targeting the 9 Nether guards. The range of this attack was so vast that there was no way to avoid it. Mu Chen's sharp eyes locked onto the vast blood rain assault that was coming at him. With a swift wave of his sleeve, every 9 Nether guards stomped their heavy halberds into the ground. Immediately, a surging, ghostly black battle intent shot into the sky, darkening the heavens as if ink were being spilled, casting the sky into a night-like hue. Mu Chen's hands moved with lightning speed as he formed hand seals, then slammed them down forcefully. Boom. The overwhelming ghostly black battle intent surged out like a tidal wave, transforming into a massive battle intent barrier thousands of feet wide, resembling an enormous, unyielding ghostly black shield. SSSHH. SSSHH. Countless blood-red spears rained down from the sky, their relentless assault landing on the battle intent barrier. A thick smoke rose up, and the scene resembled magma falling into the sea, sizzling as it cooled, turning into cold, sinking stones. Yeah, with just your mere 1,009 Nether guards, do you think you can compete with my Blood Eagle guards in terms of battle intent? Wu Tian sneered, his lips curling into a mocking smile. He then raised a finger into the air once more. Buzz! Buzz! Behind him, countless blood-red spears materialized, continuously shooting out in waves. Judging by his movements, he was determined to use the strength of his battle intent to wear down Mu Chun and the 9 Nether guards, exhausting them to the point where they would fall. The onlookers around them frowned, sensing the tension in the air. The Blood Eagle guards, with their numerical advantage, had far more powerful battle intent than the 9 Nether guards. Although Wu Tian hadn't used his full strength yet, if this dragged on, Mu Chun and the 9 Nether guards would eventually be overwhelmed by the immense consumption of energy. The difference in numbers between the 9 Nether guards and the Blood Eagle guards is just too great. Some people whispered, shaking their heads. It seemed clear from the start that the outcome of this duel had little suspense. However, Mu Chun had no time to pay attention to the sympathetic gazes around him. As wave after wave of brutal attacks came crashing in, his young face remained calm. With every wave of his sleeve, more battle intent poured out, reinforcing their defenses. The offensive and defensive standoff continued, but as time passed, the sympathetic looks directed at the 9 Nether guards began to shift into astonishment. Even in the face of such a ferocious assault, the 9 Nether guards' defense showed no signs of weakening, not even the slightest hint of collapse. How is this possible? Some of the experts from the Great Luo Heaven domain murmured in disbelief. The Xun'er king, the mountain-splitting king, and others glanced at each other, their eyes flickering thoughtfully before turning to the young figure sitting cross-legged above the 9 Nether guards. They muttered to themselves, "This is getting interesting." Amidst the astonished gazes, Mu Chun slowly lifted his head. With a smile directed at the increasingly cold-faced Wu Tian, he said, "Enough of the games." Wu Tian's expression twitched upon hearing this. He couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. "No wonder you dared to take this duel. It seems you had some trump cards up your sleeve. I underestimated you. Show your true strength. If all you can do is this, it would be a waste of the Blood Eagle guards," Mu Chun remarked. "Your words really make me angry." "That was just a test attack," Wu Tian replied lightly, though his eyes now burned with a fierce killing intent and rage. "Well, since you really want to experience the full power of my Blood Eagle guards, I'm more than happy to oblige." As Wu Tian's voice trailed off, his pupils gradually began to turn a deep crimson. He slowly raised both hands, and from behind him, the Blood Eagle guards roared in a bloodthirsty frenzy. Roar! Wu Tian's hands slowly formed seals, and as his hand gestures changed, the sky-shattering blood-red battle intent roared violently. The surging battle intent became even more powerful than before. Clearly, Wu Tian had finally realized that the 9 Nether guards were not as easy to deal with as he had thought. He had no choice but to fully unleash his power. Blood Eagle Battle Seal, suppress the 8 directions. Suddenly, Wu Tian's hand seals froze, and the crimson in his eyes surged violently. He raised his hands high, and the blood-red battle intent behind him rushed forward, forming into an enormous blood-red light seal in the sky, as massive as a mountain. As the blood-red light seal emerged, the spiritual energy in the world surged wildly, enveloped in an indescribable sense of oppression. Under this overwhelming force, even those at the 3rd grade supreme level could not help but change their expressions. Some strong individuals who understood the Blood Eagle guards looked grave. In past conquests, countless powerful warriors had been suppressed into a pulp by this Blood Eagle battle will. Wu Tian was finally starting to employ his true techniques. Mu Chun looked up, the immense blood-red seal reflected in his eyes, causing his gaze to grow serious. Despite his disdain for Wu Tian, he had to admit that this fellow was far from ordinary. The Blood Eagle guards showcased remarkable power under his command. Without him, just this single offensive move might have resulted in heavy casualties among the 9 Nether's guards. However, in this world, there were no what-ifs. "I wonder if you can still talk tough now." Wu Tian sneered down at Mu Chun, his mouth twisted in a sinister grin. He slammed his palm down, and the blood-red light seal, resembling a mountain, pierced the void, appearing in an instant above the 9 Nether's guards, then crashing down with ferocity. Boom! The battlefield collapsed at that moment, with enormous cracks spreading rapidly. Boom, boom, boom. The ground continuously caved in, and Mu Chen's robes were pressed tightly against his body. Glancing down at the still solid 9 Nether's guards, he smiled faintly. 9 Nether's guards, after years of patience, it's time to spread our wings today. Our name, the 9 Nether's guards, shall resonate throughout the great Luo heaven domain. Mu Chen's soft voice quietly echoed in the hearts of every 9 Nether's guards soldier, and their gazes suddenly burned with heat and sharpness. Could their years of endurance finally burst forth? Boom! Countless individuals were shocked to see immense dark columns of light shooting up into the sky from among the 9 Nether's guards, the battle intent contained within surging to an astonishing degree. Many powerful figures' expressions changed slightly, their eyes filled with astonishment. How could the battle intent unleashed by the 9 Nether's guards be so formidable? Mu Chen tilted his head back. Slowly spreading his hands, he dispersed his will within the surging battle intent, then quietly formed a hand seal with one hand. Buzz! At the point where countless battle intent light pillars converged, the space was torn apart, revealing a colossal dark wing, gradually taking shape. The wild winds of the world became ferocious to the extreme. 9 nether wings sever the heavens. A piercing light gathered in Mu Chen's eyes. He curled his fingers sharply and then, with force, slashed down toward the void in front of him. Screech! In that instant, a clear, resonant sound erupted as the dark wing descended like a celestial sword, crashing down while surrounded by dark arcs of light, colliding with the descending blood eagle battle seal. At the moment of impact, the air itself, filled with gasps, seemed to freeze in silence. Whoosh! The massive dark feather swept across the sky, and under the gaze of countless onlookers, it violently collided with the heavily descending blood eagle battle seal. However, contrary to expectations, the collision did not create the anticipated thunderous din. Instead, the two overwhelming forces merely engaged, each trying to erode and overpower the other in a fierce struggle. All eyes were fixed on the sky. In this tense standoff, Wu Tian's expression darkened slightly. This stalemate was not what he wished to see. The Blood Eagle guards outnumbered the 9 Nether's guards nearly 5-1, and it should have been a crushing victory. I wonder how long you can hold on. Wu Tian said coldly, his expression grim. He shifted his hand seals again as a wave of blood-red battle intent surged from behind him, continuously pouring toward the Blood Eagle battle seal. Their battle intent was far more majestic than that of their opponents. If this stalemate continued, Mu Chen and his team would surely be defeated. The sudden surge of power from the Blood Eagle battle seal caused Mu Chen's gaze to sharpen slightly. He took a deep breath, formed his hand into a blade, and forcefully slashed down. Whoosh! The harsh sound came from high above, causing the pupils of countless people to shrink sharply. The Blood Eagle battle seal, at that moment, was being torn apart by the eerie black light feathers, leaving a massive crack. How is this possible? Countless people were shocked, never expecting this. The battle seal, which contained the overwhelming battle intent of the Blood Eagle Guard, was actually torn apart. Wu Tian's expression froze for a moment, but during that moment of hesitation, Mu Chen did not give him any extra opportunity. With a calm motion, Mu Chen's handsome face remained composed as he swiped his palm down. As his palm struck, some incredibly powerful experts faintly sensed that, in that instant, the pervasive 9 nether battle will seem to suddenly boil and surge with extreme intensity. A trace of eerie light streaked across the sky. The black light feathers swept down, and the crack on the Blood Eagle battle seal instantly expanded to its limit, before it was forcefully torn in two. Boom! The Blood Eagle battle seal exploded in the sky, scattering into countless light particles that slowly dissipated. As the light particles vanished, Wu Tian and the Blood Eagle Guard were left in a daze. Outside the battlefield, the sky erupted with an uproar. Countless powerful individuals exchanged astonished glances, unable to fathom how Mu Chen had managed such a feat. After all, when it came to the strength of battle intent, the Blood Eagle Guards was obviously much more formidable. What's going on? Su Qing looked at the scene in surprise and couldn't help but ask the Xun'er king in front of him. Under normal circumstances, it should have been the 9 Nether Guard that was defeated, not the other way around. The Xun'er king furrowed his brows, his eyes narrowing as he muttered softly, "Mu Chen, truly extraordinary. Didn't you notice something?" Su Qing hesitated for a moment before replying. It seems the 9 Nether Guards' battle intent is even stronger under his control. If you controlled the 9 Nether Guard, could you have achieved this? The Xun'er king asked slowly. Su Qing fell silent before shaking his head. If it were him in charge of the 9 Nether Guard, he would have never been able to defeat the Blood Eagle Guard under Wu Tian's command. Then that's the point, the Xun'er king said. It means Mu Chen's understanding and mastery of battle intent surpasses all of you. How is that possible? Su Qing was shocked. Mu Chen had only come to the Great Luo Heaven domain recently. He should have never had any exposure to battle intent before, whereas they had been immersed in it for years. That's why I said he's no simple person, the Xun'er king replied flatly. Su Qing was speechless. Then he's certain to win this duel, right? Not so fast, the Xun'er king said slowly. Although Mu Chen's grasp of battle intent exceeds yours, the Blood Eagle Guard is no pushover, and Wu Tian is no ordinary opponent. If it comes to a life-or-death battle, Mu Chen might still face great trouble. After all, the 9 Nether Guard has a natural disadvantage. Su Qing nodded lightly, then looked back up at the slender figure in the sky, his gaze somewhat complex. Elsewhere in the sky, the Blood Eagle King's face had been darkening during the previous stalemate, and upon seeing the Blood Eagle battle seal shattered, his expression turned ashen. Humph! The Blood Eagle King's cold grunt rang out like thunder, shaking Wu Tian out of his dazed state. He immediately turned pale, his face ashen. It seems that numbers alone can't guarantee victory, Mu Chen said with a faint smile, looking at Wu Tian, whose face was now pale and ugly. He naturally wouldn't let up in this moment of advantage. Wu Tian's face twisted in fury as he glared at Mu Chen with a venomous gaze, his voice cold as he snarled. Mu Chen, you're getting ahead of yourself. You think the Blood Eagle Guard is just a bunch of soft fools. With a fierce shout, Wu Tian stomped his blood spear onto the ground. Immediately, a flood of blood-red battle intent surged like a torrent, crashing toward Mu Chen with ferocious force. Having made a misstep earlier, Wu Tian had clearly lost the calm composure he once had. Mu Chen, however, remained unflustered as he watched the overwhelming onslaught of battle intent. With a wave of his sleeve, the 9 Nether battle will surged forth, directly colliding with the incoming Blood Eagle battle will. Boom, boom. The two forces of battle intent collided violently, causing thunderous booms to echo across the sky. This assault was clearly led by Wu Tian, but if one observed carefully, they would notice that no matter how fierce his bombardment was, he still couldn't break through the defense of the 9 Nether battle will. As a result, he couldn't harm Mu Chen or any of the 9 Nether Guards. When it came to controlling battle will, he was clearly no match for Mu Chen. As the attack intensified, Wu Tian began to realize this. Though he was reluctant to admit it, the harsh reality forced him to understand that continuing with aimless, reckless attacks would only waste time. The longer this dragged on, the worse it would be for them. On the surface, they should have already achieved an overwhelming victory by now. This bastard. Wu Tian's eyes blazed red, and a fierce light flashed in them. Finally, he gritted his teeth. No matter the cost, they had to win this duel, or else the Blood Eagle King would be furious. This is what you forced me to do. Wu Tian muttered coldly, then swung his robe. The relentless assault suddenly ceased. He shot a venomous glance at Mu Chen, then looked down at the Blood Eagle Guards, a sinister grin spreading on his face as he said, "Blood sacrifice battle will." Upon hearing his command, the Blood Eagle Guards hesitated for a moment. However, they eventually bit their tongues, and countless blood arrows shot out from their mouths. Whoosh, whoosh. These blood arrows shot straight into the overwhelming battle will, causing the already crimson will to become even brighter. From afar, it looked like a river of blood flowing. The faces of the Blood Eagle Guards paled significantly. Boom. The thick blood sea of battle will surged behind Wu Tian. The oppressive, bloodthirsty aura caused the sky to darken, as if doomsday was approaching. Blood demon shattering god spear. Wu Tian's face twisted into a hideous snarl. He formed a hand seal, then suddenly raised his palm. Instantly, the blood sea surged into the sky, condensing rapidly above, until blood rain began to fall. A gigantic blood demon god spear, about 1,000 feet long, slowly emerged from the bloodstorm. As the spear manifested, a chilling, bone-rattling wind began to blow across the battlefield. Outside the battlefield, many powerful figures couldn't help but change their expressions. Wu Tian had truly lost his mind. He had summoned the Blood Eagle Guard's strongest killing move. This kind of attack could even slay a third Great Supreme with a single strike. Tang Bing and the others' faces also turned pale, as they didn't expect Wu Tian to resort to such extreme measures. You Bloodhawk Hall really are ruthless, Nine Nether said coldly. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at the Blood Eagle King. We, of the Bloodhawk Hall, never show mercy in battle, the Blood Eagle King sneered. A trace of coldness flashed in Nine Nether's eyes, but she said nothing further. She shifted her gaze to the tall figure hovering above the 9 Nether guards. She had already made up her mind. If the situation turned unfavorable, she would intervene, even if it meant breaking the rules. Mu Chun, are you going to stop me again? Wu Tian's voice was filled with savage laughter, as the blood rain continued to fall, making his face look even more twisted and terrifying. Mu Chen squinted at the looming blood demon god spear that hung in the sky, radiating a cold aura, but he ignored the agitated Wu Tian. Slowly, he closed his eyes. As long as you are not afraid, I will lead you to defeat any enemy. A low voice, almost like a dream, suddenly echoed in the hearts of all the 9 Nether guards. Not afraid. Not afraid. The deep voice rang out in the hearts of each 9 Nether guard. Their heavy halberds were suddenly thrust heavily into the ground. With a whoosh, they all knelt on one knee in unison, gripping their halberds tightly. Their heads bowed slowly, facing the figure in the sky. Boom, boom. In that moment, surging battle will erupted, soaring into the sky like pillars of ink. The battle will coiled around Mu Chun like a violent tornado, howling fiercely, as though countless battle-hungry roars were mixed in. Mu Chun slowly extended both hands. He let the battle will storm rage around him. His will merged with the ferocious battle will. And so, the battle will storm began to expand at an astonishing speed. Everyone's expressions began to change. Because they all felt it. The battle will around Mu Chun was rapidly surging, multiplying in intensity. In just a few short breaths, it had already surpassed the battle will of the Blood Eagle Guards. How is this possible? Countless people were shocked into silence. They stared at the figure in the center of the storm of battle will, who had his arms spread wide. For a moment, no one could speak. Could this young man really have reached this level of control over his battle will? Rumble. A massive vortex of battle will was swirling wildly around Mu Chun, its overwhelming and powerful energy spreading across the sky and earth. It made countless people's expressions turn serious, as anyone could feel that the battle will now emanating from the 9 Nether guards had already surpassed that of the Blood Eagle guards, even though they were vastly outnumbered. How is this possible? Someone couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. The 9 Nether guards were only 1,000 strong, while the Blood Eagle guards had 5,000 warriors. Numerically, they had the overwhelming advantage. Moreover, the strength of the Blood Eagle Guard soldiers was not any weaker than the 9 Nether guards. They simply couldn't comprehend where the 9 Nether guards' astonishing battle will had come from. At this moment, it was the keen-eyed kings, like the Xun'er king and mountain-splitting king, who furrowed their brows, their gazes focused on the figure within the storm, their expressions growing more serious. It seems I underestimated him, the Xun'er king said slowly to Su Qing. With his understanding and control of battle will, I believe he might have the talent to become a battle formation master. Battle formation master? Su Qing's eyelids twitched involuntarily. As a leader himself, he understood just how rare and powerful a battle formation master was. It had once been his dream, but due to his lack of talent in spiritual arrays, he knew he could never become one. However, nowadays, battle formation masters are even rarer than spiritual array masters. Without guidance, he might struggle to achieve great mastery in battle formations, the Xun'er king said with a hint of regret. If someone with such skill appeared in the great Luo heaven domain, it would be a tremendous boost to their power. Normally, a commander, when leading an army, can only tap into a fraction, at most 10-20%, of the power of battle will. But Chen, with his understanding, is able to fully unleash this power, the Xun'er king continued, a sense of awe in his voice. So it seems this duel is already decided. No wonder the 9 Nether Palace dared to accept the Blood Eagle Hall's challenge. It looks like they had something to rely on. Blood Eagle Hall really shot themselves in the foot this time. Su Qing raised his head, speechless. Above them, the storm of battle was growing larger and larger. As it raged, the battlefield was being torn apart. Playing tricks, Wu Tian's expression darkened to a terrifying degree. But in the depths of his eyes, there was also a flash of fear. The power Chen was displaying truly made him feel a sense of dread. It was as if no matter what methods he used, he could never surpass or suppress him. Beneath that seemingly youthful face, there seemed to be an unfathomable depth. But no matter what emotions he felt, Wu Tian knew that he could no longer retreat. His only option was to fight with everything he had, hoping for a way out. If he gave up now, it would surely be his own undoing. I don't believe it. Your first-grade supreme strength can really defy the heavens. Wu Tian gritted his teeth, a vicious light flashing in his scarlet eyes. Without hesitation, he raised his hand and slammed it down. The blood demon god spear, which hovered in the air, dripping with blood, shot down with terrifying speed. Swish! The blood demon god spear moved so fast that it tore through space, its foul wind splitting the air as it appeared above the battle storm. The intense gusts of wind shattered the space, leaving cracks in its wake. This was a strike that gathered the full strength of the Blood Eagle Guards. It was extraordinarily powerful. Such an attack would be hard for even a third-grade Supreme to withstand. However, Chen's expression remained calm. His half-closed eyes opened at that moment, his black pupils as deep and mysterious as the starry sky, making it impossible to read his thoughts. He formed a seal with his hands and gently closed them. Buzz buzz. The massive vortex of battle surrounding him began to twist violently, its color deepening to a shadowy black. From a distance, it looked like a gigantic black dragon soaring through the heavens and earth. Chen waved his hand, and at the pinnacle of the battle tempest, a gigantic, pitch-black feather slowly rose. The feather took the shape of a sword, resembling the feather sword, with the blade appearing serrated, and its dark, cold light seemed capable of piercing through space. Chen's gaze remained calm, and with a graceful motion of his slender fingers, he pointed toward the sword in midair. Buzz! The pitch-black feather sword immediately began vibrating at high speed. After the final tremor, it vanished into thin air, reappearing beneath the blood demon god spear, its tip meeting the spearhead directly. The tip of the spear and the tip of the sword collided, sharp as a needle and a blade. Clang! A crisp, clear sound of metal striking metal rang out from the heavens, and 2 terrifying battle wheels howled in fury. The dark black and blood-red forces each claimed half the sky. Shatter for me. Wu Tian's face twisted in rage as he roared into the sky. Waves of crimson battle surged toward Chen, clearly intending to expend all his remaining strength in a final attempt. Chen's dark eyes glanced at him indifferently. With a slight motion of his fingers, he said, "Then shatter." At the tip of the dark feather sword, a faint glow suddenly flared. Whoosh! When the glow burst forth and vanished in an instant, the feather sword appeared behind the blood demon god spear. A tiny crack slowly spread across the spear's shaft. Crack! As the crack reached its limit, the blood demon god spear quietly split in 2, falling helplessly from the sky, bursting into countless dazzling sparks. PFF. When the blood demon god spear was split in 2, Wu Tian's face turned ashen, and the many blood eagle guards beneath him were visibly wounded, blood trickling from their mouths. In the sky, the previously ferocious blood eagle battle rapidly faded, retreating entirely within a few breaths. What had once dominated half the sky in blood-red fury had now completely vanished. The battle between the 9 Nether Guards and the Blood Eagle Guards, which had originally seemed to be dominated by the latter, had ended in a devastating defeat for the Blood Eagle Guards. Whoosh! As this scene unfolded, the sky outside the battlefield erupted with a wave of astonished murmurs. Countless powerful individuals looked on with solemn expressions. Though they remained silent, their hearts were undoubtedly shaken. The outcome was truly hard to accept. The Blood Eagle Guards had not only held a numerical advantage, but were led by Wu Tian, who was at the peak of the second grade supreme level. From the surface, it seemed that the 9 Nether Guards had no hope, but the result was enough to shatter expectations. All eyes turned to Mu Chen, for it was clear to everyone that this battle had been won due to his presence. This new leader of the 9 Nether Palace was far more powerful than anyone had imagined. At this moment, many powerful figures within the Great Luo Heaven domain looked at Mu Chen, and their previous condescending attitude vanished. Though his surface strength appeared to be at the first grade supreme level, once he truly unleashed his power, few in the Great Luo Heaven domain, aside from some ancient powerhouses and the 9 kings, could match him. The new leader of 9 Nether was countless times stronger than the former Chao Feng. The sky was filled with astonished murmurs, and some glances secretly turned toward the Blood Eagle King, who was staring darkly, his expression as grim as if water could drip from his face. On the battlefield, the battle surrounding Mu Chen slowly dissipated. Below, the 9 Nether Guards looked at him with worship and fiery admiration in their eyes. They were filled with excitement. Over the years, the 9 Nether Guards had not enjoyed much prestige in the Great Luo Heaven domain. Anyone who mentioned them did so with disdain. However, thanks to Mu Chen's leadership, they had finally earned the respect they deserved. From now on, it seemed that no one in the Great Luo Heaven domain would dare mock the 9 Nether Guards. Thank you for the gift, Bloodhawk Hall. Mu Chen looked at the pale Wu Tian in the sky and smiled faintly, cupping his hands. Wu Tian, already boiling with anger and frustration, couldn't hold back and spat a mouthful of blood. His eyes burned with hatred, wishing he could skin Mu Chen alive. However, Mu Chen paid him no mind. He turned his gaze toward the Blood Eagle King outside the battlefield and smiled. Lord Blood Eagle King, when will the 9 Nether Palace be able to take control of those 100 cities? The Blood Eagle King's face twitched, his eyes cold as he glared at Mu Chen. When did a mere little leader dare speak to me like this? When his cold, icy voice fell, a terrifying surge of spiritual pressure immediately enveloped Mu Chen. Boom! However, just as the spiritual pressure was released, more than 10 beams of spiritual energy, burning with purple flames, shot toward his vital points with lightning speed, striking mercilessly. The Blood Eagle King stomped his foot, and blood-red spiritual energy surged around him, forming a protective light shield around his body. Bang! Bang! The beams of spiritual energy slammed violently into the shield, sending spiritual fluctuations rippling through the air. A trace of purple flames clung to the shield, causing it to dissolve at an astonishing speed. Seeing this, the Blood Eagle King's expression shifted slightly. He retreated several steps, his spiritual energy erupting to scatter the purple flames, and then he fixed a dark gaze on 9 Nether, who was not far away. Blood Eagle King, you really are getting more shameless by the day, 9 Nether sneered, a mocking smile playing on her cold, stunning face. If you're still unconvinced, shall we test it out? Are you afraid of me? The Blood Eagle King coldly retorted. Enough! But just as the two faced off again, a shout suddenly echoed through the sky. The figure of the Heavenly Vulture Emperor slowly appeared once more. Seeing this, the crowd of onlookers quickly bent in respect. Since you lost the duel, you must honor the agreement. Otherwise, what rules are left? The Heavenly Vulture Emperor glanced at the Blood Eagle King and spoke. The Blood Eagle King gritted his teeth and could only nod in acknowledgement. All right, the duel is over. 9 King, come with me. The conquest war of our Great Luo Heaven domain is about to begin. The Heavenly Vulture Emperor waved his hand and said. At these words, many of the powerful figures present felt a sharp chill in their hearts.